witchlings, welcome back to my channel. It's me, your local chaotic witch aunt. And today is a very highly requested video. It's a video that a lot of people asked for in my Q&A video, which will be out in a couple weeks. A lot of people have been asking for on TikTok, and that is working with plant and animal spirits. I think I caught the attention of the majority of people to talk about this topic when I shared my experience with Coyote, which was a spirit that I attempted working with but ended up rehoming because it was just not a good fit, and that's okay. Working with plant and animal spirits has to do primarily around the belief of animism. That is the belief that everything has a spirit, everything nature has a spirit. Animals have a spirit, plants have a spirit, mountains, trees have a spirit, bodies of water have a spirit. And recognizing that as a primary facet of working with plant, animal, tree spirits is really important. If you are curious about animism, you have no idea what animism is, I really recommend Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Walt Kammerer, which I talked about in my book review videos, as well as Plant Witchery by Juliet Diaz. Both of those kind of discuss animism, the teachings of plants, seeing plants as our teachers and those who have been there before us. Honoring Your Ancestors by Mallory Vedway also talks about plants being ancestors and allies. So this concept is pretty common both in indigenous practices, in folk magic, in any kind of practice, spirituality, religion that is animist or prioritizes animist beliefs. I usually recommend that people start off by working with plant spirits rather than animal spirits. Why? Because a lot of times there's some, plant spirits that are really intense to work with for some people, that are really, difficult to work with. But animal spirits there's a little bit more research and work that needs to go into it. Plant spirits are my favorite things ever. And this isn't just, having a potted plant and working with the spirit of that potted plant. This is recognizing and looking at the teachings, the growth patterns, the medicinal, herbal, spiritual, metaphysical values of plants, and working with them not as a tool, but as a spiritual being. I took a class recently by the Root Circle called De la Medicina, Part 1, that talks about working with my ancestral herbal allies as herbal allies. We would ingest or, put a little bit of a tincture of the herb on our skin, study them, learn about them, and we would dedicate a week to each plant. Although I do not recommend ingesting herbs without, medical professional or at least a guide to help you, because some of the herbs that we ingested had not a lot of the actual herb in it. It was a flour mixture, so the actual herb that would cause issues isn't in there. But we had a teacher to help us through to answer our questions. Sometimes herbalists are really great for this. The teacher was an herbalist, I believe, or at least understood herbal medicines. And we were working energetically with these plants, which you can work both energetically and spiritually with these plants, as well as physically. So for example, mugwort is a really great herb that is used in a lot of divination spells. It's a protection herb. Sometimes people ingest it for lucid dreaming or astral projection. But when you are ingesting mugwort, are you thinking about mugwort as a spirit, what mugwort is trying to teach you? Mugwort is trying to help you through something. What is your relationship with these plants? I always recommend really decolonizing, desettling, decentering your belief that plants are tools to be taken before you start any type of plant or animal spirit work. And that is because in our Western society, in our capitalist society, we see a lot of these things as just we take, and we don't give back. Starting off with working with plant and animal allies, you can start by forming a relationship to the land you're on. That means knowing whose land it is, who it was stolen from if you're in an area that was colonized. It means getting used to the plants in the yard, the trees in the yard, learning their names, learning their behaviors. For me, since I moved recently, I don't have as much of a connection to the land that I'm on that I did in my old house, but I'm working on forming that connection and exploring plant spirits in the area. Tea break. Today's tea is brought to us by David's Tea. This is cream of Earl Grey, one of my favorites. I love more. Also a David's Tea mug that I'm obsessed with. Oh, I love that. I'm trying a bunch of different David's Teas. They sent me a lovely little sampler. I believe they're sending me another package too, which I'm like so excited for. I cannot fathom it. Holiday package, crazy. So continuing forward, learning the land you're on, working with local land spirits, and forming a relationship with them is a great way to start. In a lot of cases, you're forming a relationship with that spirit in any way you would form a relationship with any other spirit. You're communicating with them, you're giving time to them. You may be collecting trash, picking up litter. You may be, cleaning up weeds around their area. You may be checking the soil, seeing if there are any neighbors, any animals living nearby. A lot of times, taking care of plants, taking care of the land that you're on are really great ways to start working with land and plant spirits. Once you kind of get past into working with land spirits, feel like you've formed a relationship with them, which if you're interested in kind of that's books I recommended are great. The plants that you work with the most in your practice are really important. And these plants may not even be plants from outside. They may not even exist in your bioregion, but they may be plants that you feel especially called to, that your ancestors worked with, that you are associated with your deities, and they may have a profound place in your practice. For me, that is mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris, rosemary, Rosmarinus officinalis, rue, Rudigraveolens, and a few others like basil, bay, oregano, lots of cooking herbs. And all three of those herbs are honored in my practice in a very broad way. Mugwort, rosemary, and rue are always on my altar, both my altars, my ancestral altar and my working altar. I call upon them, meditate with them, talk to them frequently, and I love to learn from them. What does rosemary have to teach us in the way that she grows in her medicinal and spiritual properties? What does rue have to teach us in her medicinal and spiritual properties? These are the ways that you start working with plant spirits. I usually recommend plant spirits before, which I said already, animal spirits, because once you move into animal spirits, you have to do things like study animals' behavior, know the animals' interactions and relationship with any other animals you may be working with. So for example, when I worked with coyote, I was working with fox pretty heavily. The fox is my familiar, or my familiar is a fox spirit, so I work with the fox very frequently. And the fox has always had a place in my altar. I have multiple things from a fox to represent the fox spirit, and I've always worked pretty heavily with it. And coyote, wasn't as integral in my practice because I thought, one trickster spirit is enough. But it turns out in the wild, coyotes will purposefully exclude foxes from their territory. So there were multiple reasons for which coyote didn't like the space that he was in, one of which was fox was around. And that was my bad for not researching that relationship before bringing that spirit in. A lot of times, these animal spirits that you're working with have many cultural stories, cultural backgrounds, historical references. For example, when we look at fox, we can look at fox in Asian folklore. We can also look at fox in Native American folklore. We can look at fox in Scandinavian, European folklore, and every single one is going to be a little different. We see foxes in Ireland. A lot of these animals exist in multiple different continents and areas, and all of those peoples that inhabited that space have different stories about that animal, or have different lore associated with that animal. And because of that, it's in your best interest to become familiar with those stories. That is why working with animal spirits takes a little bit more energy. It's kind of like you're bringing that animal into your home. You want to make sure that they're comfortable, that they're in a space that they enjoy. It's not just like deity work or other saint work where you can give them a cup of water and a crystal, say a prayer, they'll be happy. They have to actively enjoy and be seen in the relationship with you. Fox and I have a relationship in which his characteristics, his nature in the wild is honored in the things I ask from him to help me with. I ask him to create illusions for wards. I ask him to seek out information. I ask him to sneak. These are things that he would do, and he loves it because foxes, although they are tricksters, are clever, they are resilient, and they are sneaky. There's just so much in that animal that needs to be honored when you take on working with them. The other animal I primarily work with is the rabbit. Now the rabbit is also seen as a trickster in some lore and mythology. The rabbit is also seen as luck, fertility. The rabbits are associated with so many different gods. Hello? What? This is Gato, also known as Gatito. Say hi. Say hi. But he's gonna go off and do whatever. So I research the rabbit, I look at the rabbit, and I incorporate the rabbit in my practice in a way that honors the spirit of the rabbit as well as works for me. You are not just working with a spirit that you can conduct any way you want without understanding the nature of that animal. That is what is difficult about working with animal spirits. Other animal spirits that I've worked with or have included in my practice include the snake, the deer, the goat is honored on my altar mostly because of Diana, elk or deer. What else? I've worked with the cat spirit before, and if you are working with a spirit just for like one working, you're not doing a lot, there's not a lot going on, it's important for you to work with it. Like, don't just say, hey, help me with this, and don't give them anything in return. Make sure they feel honored in the space. Make sure you honor them past the working. And it's really important to note that these are full-fledged spirits. Spirits with attitudes, spirits with personalities, spirits who want certain things and act certain ways. And if you cannot honor the way they act, the way they behave, you have to let them go. Big thing working with animal and plant spirits, you're not gonna get along with everyone. There will be some animal spirits that you do not mesh with, and you need to be mature enough to say, okay, I'm not gonna work with you any longer because this isn't working. You cannot force an animal or plant spirit to work with you if it does not want to work with you. This is not something that you can force, because trust me, with some animals, if you try to force it, maybe the ramifications aren't bad. You may just have a really bad relationship with the animal. With other animals, if you try to force that relationship, you will end up in a steaming pile of your own shit. Example 1, Coyote. You do not want to force a relationship with Coyote because Coyote will fuck your life up. You don't want to force a relationship with animals that are known to be tricksters, that are known to be extremely cunning, certain predatorial animals you don't want to force the relationship with. If you are trying to force a relationship with a cat, there's a chance that that cat and the spirit of the cat may find that knocking things over and breaking glasses in your space is a really great way of getting back at you. You may experience that if you have a good relationship with the cat. My fox spirit knocks things over when it needs attention. I say, okay, thank you. And because of this, approaching this, you have to have a particular mindset of this is a building relationship. This isn't just you can summon this entity, this spirit, whether it be plant or animal, call upon it to help you and never acknowledge it again. That is not how this works, and it will not go good for you if you do that. No animal spirit or plant spirit likes to be called in for something, asked to do something, they do it, and then you just ignore them. It's like ignoring your pet, in a way. After they do, like, you don't give them a treat, you don't give them anything. If they are on good behavior, they are rewarded. And what I mean by good behavior is like the relationship is going well. It's a mutual relationship, it's a give and take, less transactional, more fluid and growing. There's a lot to learn from animals and plants that surround us every day, and depending on what you feel called to, you can work with these different animal spirits. I didn't have really a choice in working with rabbit, fox, or deer, but I did have a choice in working with snake and working with goat, and those were spirits that I brought into my practice and honored. Every time I use a bit of snake shed, in my spells, the snake shed on my altar, and that space is honored with a crystal, a candle, a glass of water. There's thanks given to the animal. Daisy, girl. But yeah, that's my video on working with plant and animal spirits. I'm gonna go so I can make sure that this lovely dog does not steal a goat horn off of my altar, because believe me, they have tried. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, if you've worked with plant and animal spirits before and you want to leave a comment, please do. If you feel like you want to subscribe, turn the bell on, leave a like. Totally feel free, but no pressure. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Sa benedica.